Welcome to really the hottest news, the breaking news. Um, when it comes to the borderland, El Paso, Fort Bliss, Fort Huachuca, the Charlie Kirk, um, killing the, and you might not, you might think, why is she saying that? Why is she saying that? Because really, um, Richard's case is so connected and is really the epicenter of this, including beating out the Walmart shooting. When you understand Richard's case, then all the other things fall in place. And so that's why the more you learn about our son's case, the more you'll understand what's really happening because El Paso, Fort Bliss, is the epicenter really of right now of uh, of everything that's happening in the world. I I wish I was over exaggerating. I wish I was. But there you have it. There you have it. And I know I'll probably get um, people sneering and whatever, but this is a place to come. This is a place to come because it's all coming out, and we have put up so much evidence, mountains of evidence to help you understand what's going on right now. So let's get started. And it's day 2000 since our son was forcibly removed from his barracks room on Fort Bliss. Can you imagine that happening? Because see, the barracks oh, sorry. Let me turn that down. The barracks has strict rules, and we have the papers from Richard's things that that they have to sign. That they are given these standard operating procedures, these regulations, and they were absolutely shattered. They weren't following them at all. And our volunteer sons and daughters were not safe at all in the barracks. The security had been totally breached, and we believe that it's still breached today. I mean, and on purpose, and on purpose to um, compromise our sons and daughters so that they wouldn't become whistleblowers. You see, if you have something dirty on them, then you can compromise them and then they can't become a reliable source as a whistleblower. It's kind of like the same playbook as Jeffrey Epstein, isn't it? To compromise leadership so bad that they can get promoted because they've been compromised so that they can trust not to reveal all of their criminal activities, right? Activities, because clearly you see that in Minnesota. There is, and that's, just the tip of the iceberg. And I hate to say that, but we all know that Minnesota, $19 billion? Am I over exaggerating that? I don't think so. Um, a fraud from taxpayers' money, funneled through fraud into people's pockets. Elon Omar going from being poor Somali to $30 million in 1 year. Um, I think it is. I think that that's what is being reported, that it's all happened in a year. So the fraud is enormous. And of course, over our lifetime being part of the military and the military contract community, living in Europe for a long time, most of my life was living in Europe. And really being right there in Ramstein. Ramstein has NATO. buildings there that have extra security. There's security all around Ramstein Air Base, and once you get in there, there's NATO, and NATO is then also surrounded by security. And here our son was in his barracks room, and it should be the most secure place, but they weren't following the SOPs. They weren't following those standard operating procedures. They were absolutely negligent, absolutely on purpose, intentionally breaking all the security. And so he was he was reporting on all of that because of the cartel infiltrated Mormon faction criminal trafficking that was on base on Fort Bliss, that was going on. The worst type of crimes against children, worst type of crimes. Even Lilani Hard, who uses many aliases, she confessed to the worst type of crime committed against a soldier's 7-year-old son in her house by multiple members of her household. Um, she confessed to that to the FBI. She absolutely needs to be arrested just for that one confession, because of the failure to report it in a timely manner, or if she lied about it, then she needs to be, lying to the FBI, putting something like that into the FBI. Um, she's a criminal all around. She's a convicted criminal. She needs to be arrested. So, they were absolutely, CYS. I haven't forgotten about Ann Ogle of CYS going hand in hand, really, with DES Thomas Kane, in their very criminal ventures, um, and really breaking the security and allowing the worst type of crimes against children and the breaches in the barracks that allowed our son to be forcibly removed from his barracks room, taken down to the into the basement room, the arms room, and his life was taken. And then his body was stolen off of Fort Bliss. This is also demonstrates the absolute breach, insecurity that our volunteer sons and daughters face every day. It, and I don't even want to go into all of the sexual deviance there that our sons and daughters have to be put through. And we know that with the Asia Graham case, and she was found not alive in October of 2020. Um, so a lot of deaths, a lot of compromising our sons and daughters, our volunteer sons and daughters into the military, and then if you're a whistleblower, if you want to fight it, you're not alive. You're not alive. And they'll make all kinds of excuses, right? They'll make all kinds of excuses. They'll do a smear campaign. They'll say all these untrue things in the newspaper, Stars and Stripes, which is absolutely a rag. Absolutely a rag. Will report the worst things, um, and I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it because, I thought that they cared about our volunteer sons and daughters that serve in our military, and they don't. They don't. They serve a foreign and domestic enemy. That's who Stars and Stripes serves, and I would say even Task and what is that other one? The Task and oh geez, um, something and I believe they serve a foreign and domestic enemy of the United States. I really do. They had all the opportunity, and I've talked with them to report on on this case and everything going on in El Paso that we have revealed, right? The Mayelas, the whole Walmart mass shooting. I don't know too many people that know the Walmart mass shooting case as well as we know it. There's not too many. There are some, but not too many. Um, and it really, um, it's really shocking that that is not being reported, especially when it is clearly connected. Look at Alexandra Gerhard Hofmann wrote, who was absolutely uh, targeted, targeted at that Walmart. He was targeted. He was their target, y'all, along with a few others. And his family members. That's the connection to Richard, too. There's so many connections, but that's a connection also that they were in possession with our son's credit cards and financial information, knowing that his family is a family of fraudsters and they're in possession. Those links, those links with our son's credit cards and financial information. And the media doesn't want to cover that. The military media doesn't want to cover that. Um, so they absolutely are rags and absolutely serve foreign and domestic enemies, and they can't be trusted. And the way Rose Thayer reported on Richard right at the very beginning absolutely proves that fact. And so, yeah, um, it is really heartbreaking because not only are our volunteer sons and daughters in so much danger on a military base, on their own military base, on their own homeland, in the barracks where they should feel the safest, right? Not only are they not safe, that they are in so much danger, more danger than being off base in like an apartment complex. They are in way more danger in the barracks under so much control of infiltrators as NCOs. I mean, the NCOs were oh, so compromised. The generals are so compromised. And so they absolutely intentionally endangered our volunteer sons and daughters that want to serve in our military in the barracks. They intentionally put them in harm's way, in absolute harm's way. And that's what my dad was trying to really get through to me. And of course, my husband to get through to me in the beginning because he was like, look, there's no esprit de corps. So he was saying there's betrayal at the highest levels in the NCOs and the generals. And that has been confirmed in our investigation. Now, I'm not the president of the United States, and so I'm not the commander in chief. And the commander in chief absolutely has a duty to be a cheerleader for our military because that's who he is leading. And behind the scenes, I'm sure that uh, things are happening. Things are happening. So this is in no way, um, this is in no way not supporting President Trump. In no way. Um, because I feel like he inherited a big compromised mess of traitors, of absolute traitors. And our son's case just exposes it so clearly. And that is why he's addressing this as commander in chief. He's addressing this. And so he went to Davos. He went to Davos. And Davos, it was masterclass today, and I'm still absorbing it. I'm still absorbing what President Trump just did in Davos. It was just masterclass. Um, because in order to solve these problems that we have, these criminal problems that we have, there needs to be an economy. You can't have a sinking economy. And I think the economy would be doing so much better if they would allow it to do better. But I think that there has been sabotage um, in our economy, and yet still, the very hard work of 2025 is paying off. President Trump is paying off, and people must understand this. President Trump went to the Wharton School of Finance. Okay, he is an economist. He he is, he studied um, how business and money work. And it's just wonderful to have that. We are his biggest supporters, and um, we are just his biggest supporters. And there's so many reasons for it. So many reasons. Because of this, one of the biggest smears that he undergoes is this whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. It was under his administration that Jeffrey Epstein was arrested. It's the whole pipeline, right? From Zorro Ranch to through Fort Bliss and El Paso, down through Mexico, um, over into Cuba, passing through Haiti and Dominican Republic to Puerto Rico, Marlon Soto, Delirious. These are Puerto Rico connections. That and then right there, voila, is Little Saint James, right? Island, the island that everyone talks about of Jeffrey Epstein, and then back again, It's very, very clear, this pipeline once you map it out. And I love to illustrate things when I'm learning about things. I like to paint, I like to draw, I like to meme things, I like to make charts. One of the very first things I did was chart out everything that was going on with Richard. We had it printed out, we gave it to the commander, and it showed that Richard was a total stellar soldier and that the claims against him were dubious, the unreliable, outright lies, and also showed a retaliatory um, effort against him that led to taking his life and taking his body and trafficking his body to Mexico. And that's what happened. And this is a very criminal group that has made an alliance with uh, Mexican cartel, and they have made an alliance, You could call it a joint venture alliance, giving access to these cartel members like Carlos Manuel Salas, even though he is impersonating the Attorney General for the North Zone for Chihuahua. They get access, they get housing, they get loans, bank loans, banking um, accounts, right? They get bank accounts, they get their car registrations and licenses and everything in El Paso and live in El Paso. And they get protection. They get legal protection. They get so much protection that is not afforded to our volunteer sons and daughters that want to serve in our military, that live on post and in the barracks. They get no protection. But Carlos Manuel Salas gets protection. Okay? Gets protection. Rafael Arellano Caron, who's the son of Rosa Maria Purchase Arellano Caron, the owners of the Plenitude Crematorium, total crimes against humanity, with in one go 400 rat infested, moldy, no potable water, no energy, bodies piled up like cardwood, rotting there. And they're protected. They live in El Paso. They live right next to Beto O'Rourke. Multiple homes, multiple businesses. They are protected. But our volunteer sons and daughters that want to serve in the military, that live on a secure military base like Fort Bliss in the barracks, is not protected at all. They are targeted. They are targeted with deviant sexual cults, drugs, guns, harassment, and also taken down into to the arms room, and their life taken, their bodies stolen, and trafficked over to Mexico with probable cause of organ harvesting, cashing in on some humanitarian aid and insurance policies and all of that. They are not protected. They are absolutely targeted. Um, and yet you have Cesar Paneche, who can funnel money, funnel fuel out of Pemex, out of the Mexican people's fuel pipeline. He can siphon siphon out billions of barrels of fuel, and then have his way with it, reselling it, selling it back to the government, to Maru Campos's governor office. Have his way with it and make all this money, have a big mansion, and yet he is protected living in Texas. He is protected. So these people that take fuel, this is, the siphoning of fuel is such a huge, huge crime, because we have no life and economy without fuel. And what President Trump said at Davos with the windmills, which I know so well about windmills because I lived in Europe and I saw it over the decades. The building of these stupid, ugly, bird killing, the sound of them is so dangerous, right? They're dangerous for planes, and they're huge. They're huge. And they put these wind farms up everywhere, everywhere in Europe. They're as ugly as sin. and they put them up everywhere, endangering the people with their frequencies, endangering nature with all their blades. And then they're not even on half the time because they can't. The wind has to be just right, right? The wind has to be just right. Um, yeah, that's really smart. And then get this, he said it today. Um, there they closed off when I first got to Europe. They had nuclear plants, right? They closed up these nuclear plants. They put up these wind ugly. Oh my gosh, they're so ugly and so dangerous. Destroying the land, really destroying it. Um, they put up these wind farms, and the whole premise was, oh, we're going to have cheap and safe energy. And now, like 100%, over 100% raise in energy costs there. Um, and they have real worries because now with AI demanding so much energy, uh, they have real worries that, um, and so I hope they're taking them down. He said they're taking them down. I know that they destroyed beautiful sceneries. Um, and I know that from his Turnberry in Scotland, it ruined the scenery off his property, his golf course, hotel area that saved that area. It's the birthplace of Robert the Bruce. Many say that's the birthplace of Robert the Bruce. And I really, the true Spider-Man, Robert the Bruce is the true Spider-Man. He, under his kilt, he has the emblem of the spider because, he was, after what happened to William Wallace, his betrayal of William Wallace, he was himself betrayed. He tried to make a deal, and was betrayed. Betrayed a great friend and was betrayed. And so he went into hiding. And in that hiding, he was watching a spider that never, ever, ever gives up. That never, ever, ever gives up. The wind can come and destroy the web. The water can come and destroy the web, and the spider never gives up. It keeps on spinning a web, and that's why I always think of Robert the Bruce when I look at President Trump because he always says never ever ever give up. It's like, oh, are you like Robert the Bruce? I think he's greater than Robert the Bruce, right? Um, and of course, Robert the Bruce went on to deliver Scotland from the tyranny. And, so, you learn by mistakes, right? You learn by these betrayals. And I think, um, you know, and pray and hope, but I have so much evidence that confirms that this is happening. And we'll see. Pray for President Trump to keep on the path that he is because it's a lot of compromising, right? A lot of compromising. He was in Davos, and he has to play what 5D chess, 10D chess with these individuals that have done such harm to the world. They've done such harm to the world. Um, and he called them out. He was an absolute Robert the Bruce. Well, maybe he was a William Wallace, but he was just, just gave them a beating. Um, and it was just beautiful to see because he, pointed out to the people and to those, he called them stupid for getting all those windmills in. And that was just one of the points, because truly, the word stupid means that you don't see into the future, right? That's what that means, that you're just short sighted. You're going to just get the money real quick, make a deal with these fools, and foolishly, go along with the destruction of your own country, because that's what these windmills did, because of the energy. So energy is very, very important. And for Cesar Paniche to be living in the United States when he was working with Alejandro de la Vega, with the Maru Campos administration, the governor of Chihuahua, that also employed General John Kelly as a security advisor, for this kind of betrayal. And just to let you know, Maru Campos is confirmed to be totally cartel, Sinaloa cartel, right? The Chapitos faction of the Sinaloa cartel. So this is an FTO, and you have major players participating in this FTO and the destruction of people. FTO, what that stands for, this is a destruction, crimes against humanity. They were participating in the crimes of humanity, siphoning the Pemex, and then, selling it back to the government, making the taxpayers pay for that, and then using his Grupo Carvel to sell it again to people. I mean, the crimes against humanity are so big, from Plenitude Crematorium to I'm going to be the secretary of the economy, Alejandra de la Vega, lining her pockets and bringing in, um, um, you know, wow, I know so much about that, but I'm not at liberty to say. But this whole thing with John Kelly, right? What a betrayal! What a stab in the back to every Marine, to every American, and he is protected. He is protected. Alejandro de la Vega is protected. Cesar Peniche is protected. And they live in Texas or in the United States. But our volunteer sons and daughters that want to serve in the military and are forced to live on base and in the barracks, are targeted and are not safe at all. So much so that they can forcibly remove you from your room, take you to the arms room, take your life, and steal you off of the base when we pay for all of those security cameras. But yet we have compromised DES because there's no scrutiny, because he's part of the Mormon faction cartel, criminal organization that is, the El Paso cartel, really. And he's allowing Richard's body to be stolen off of Fort Bliss, allowing him to be his life taken, allowing him beforehand to be even targeted, to be retaliated against, and then to be trafficked over to Mexico, and then to cover up for the cover up. And he can live in the United States, and he can be protected under some kind of different kind of structure, law structure. But we have to watch what we say or whatever. But they can commit these egregious, heinous crimes and be protected. And our volunteer sons and daughters have to be abused and used and targeted on base in their barracks room. That's why we can't ever give up here. So I wanted to address uh, who shot up the Walmart. somebody, and I didn't write down their name, but somebody wrote, then who shot up the Walmart? Because our posts, and we have so much more, y'all, we have so much more. Our posts are so compelling that the narrative that was given to us by a very, uh, well, traitorous media, a media that was giving us a false narrative. I mean, they still haven't covered the whole Mayella connection, right? What the heck? They've known about the Mayella connection since 2019. They wrote a little hint of it in July of 2020. That little hint of it sparked our interest enough to investigate. And that's how we found out who the Mayellas were. And it's huge. It's kind of like when we discovered the whole Nadal Baim. They're not even covering the whole Nadal Baim Palestinian arms dealer that is the father in law to Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugaldo in the G3 of the 32nd ADCOM and is connected to the cartel. The cartel, the very cartel that were imposters, one being an imposter as a Texas Ranger who was assigned to our case. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You know, another official that actively targeted his family, actively targeted our son before his life was taken. So our evidence, our investigation, I don't know who else has it. Who else is putting it out there? It is so compelling. And so I'm so glad that you're here and that you're going to listen to who shot up the Walmart. And you can go right to Glennon Oakley Jr., who also lost his life in the barracks on Fort Bliss because our soldiers are targeted. Our sons and daughters are targeted when they become volunteer soldiers in the military or volunteer service members in the military. They become targets. And Glennon Oakley Jr. became a target. Just because he was at the mall, the Sale of Vista Mall, and saw the group in black tactical gear carrying M4s and hearing shots ring out at the mall. Who was at the mall? Whose life was taken at the mall? Shots rang out at the mall. At the mall. And that's not talked about enough. But Glendon Oakley Jr., right away, minutes after it happened, said it. He said shots rang out and there was a group in black tactical gear carrying M4s. M4s are the military weapons. Where are the bullets that were in the mall? What kind of bullets are there? Who shot up the mall? Who was targeted? Because the evidence, when you look at Alexander Gerhard Hofmann, he was professionally His life was taken professionally, close range. And so was Maria Eugenia Lagerroth and her husband not too long after. His life was taken also. There's connections. The Enchandos, their life was taken. The couple. The baby survived. I think Memo Garcia, who said, no, it wasn't Patsy. It wasn't Patsy. Because he survived a year before he lost his life. Thank you so much, Laura. She says, I'm sorry you had to go through this. There's so many members of the military involved, and the ones who aren't corrupt are targeted. 100%. Just imagine plain civilians, what we go through. Glennon Oakley Jr., Vanessa Guillen, your son, God knows who else. So many more. We have so many names, y'all. We have so many names. And absolutely right. And this is at taxpayers' expense. And this is what President Trump walked into. And I mean what he walked into in 2016. Of course, 2025, but in 2016, this is what he walked into. And you saw it. If you go back and look, it was betrayal after betrayal after betrayal. And he was more bold. Remember how he went after NATO? Now he's sitting at Davos with the leader of NATO, making a deal, the art of the deal, to get Greenland. And Greenland is very, very important to our national security. When he mentioned Greenland, I was just, oh my God, this is the greatest president. Because Greenland is, and how do I know this? Because my father-in-law served in Greenland for a whole year. The Air Force has a base there. Greenland is very, very important to the Bering Strait. How do I know? My parents worked in the American embassy there in Moscow, Russia for 9 years, over 9 years. So we've had this connection on what was going on in Russia. My dad was in the American embassy watching outside his window the coup on the White House, because Russia has a White House also, by Yeltsin. So, this Russia's northern territory, right there, so close, um, uh, Greenland is so important to our national security. And for him to say that, I mean, I knew that before, just like I knew about the tunnels. I knew about the tunnels because my dad told me. He was ADA. I was born at White Sands Missile Range. My parents belonged to the German American Club. Alexander Gerhard Hofmann is a German that was sent there to to the German base that was on Fort Bliss, Biggs Air Force Base, when he was younger. And I know that these are officers or highly trained aeronautical engineers, because my parents belonged to the German American Club and knew who these Germans were. And they knew about the plane that went down while they were there. I think 29 of these German officers lost their lives there. And my mom always wonders about that because something really stinks around that, she said. Um, so, yeah, it's interesting how God has put these things in our lives that give us insight for times such as this, for times such as this. And I knew because of my education and working in special education, working with young children. I was a kindergarten teacher and I taught fourth grade, and just education has been my thing, right? When I saw Patrick Crucius, right away, it didn't take me 15 minutes. And I said, oh, he needs to be tested. He's autistic. And I said that. I said, in my opinion, in my professional opinion, he's autistic. And, that's the only time that Bob Moore came on to, harass us, saying, no, he's not. And now it's confirmed. He absolutely is, since he was a child, banging his head on his neighbor said, and this is through the hearings. In the hearings, in the questions, the um, Loretta Lynn Hewitt got on the stand and her notes talking to the neighbors of Patrick Crucius. When he was a little boy, he would go out there and bang his head on the sidewalk. He failed kindergarten. He couldn't tie his shoes. He couldn't speak until he was at least 6 years old. Major problems. And where was this at? In Allen, Texas, which brings us to the next subject. But I want to finish the question, who shot up the Walmart? Well, we know who it wasn't. We know that Patrick Crucius said that he took one or two lives, which is enough, and he's serving 90 life sentences. Um, that's enough. But what about all the others? What about all the others? What really happened? And which ones is he talking about? Because the evidence shows that it wasn't there's no way that he could have done that to Alexander Hofmann, because he was already down with a long stream of the red stuff before Patrick Crucius was entering in the front entrance on the west side. Um, in the pictures, it was no way that it was Patsy when it comes to Maria Eugenia Lagarite Road in the parking lot, because his weapon was down, walking up, he wasn't even, and this was a close range shot, a professional close range shot, not not something that was, a boomerang or a distance shot. No, this was a close range shot. The forensics shows it. And the video shows it. She was already down for a time period, because you see the puddle before he walked up. And I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. Um, so we know who it wasn't. And of course, Memo Garcia says it wasn't him. And we have many, many victims that, and witnesses that were there, injured. But we know there was a lot of bad players. And we know because of FBI, because of Texas Rangers testimony, um, admitting um, that this was a staged crime scene. We know from FBI that it wasn't secured for over 48 hours. That's 2 days, y'all. What did they do in those 2 days that it wasn't secured? And that many individuals, and we see it in the video that I released, many individuals walked all over that crime scene, taking pictures, walking over evidence. And then the pictures show a very different story, a very different than what we were told. And I truly believe that there were many that were hurt. I believe that some of them were at the mall, some of them were maybe other places. They were into flesh peddling this cartel, the network there in El Paso, this El Paso cartel. They could absolutely flesh peddle and move those bodies around. And we know that the medical examiner is totally compromised, that he's totally cartel, that he is illegally in the country, that he's unqualified for that position. $500,000 of taxpayers' money he gets. And we know that it was Veronica Escobar that brought him in, signed his checks. Now it's Ricardo Samaniego, totally compromised, eating fine dining with Rafael Arellano Caron, who gets protection by Ricardo Samaniego. But our volunteer sons and daughters that volunteer to serve our country by volunteering into the military, that are required to live on a secure military installation in the barracks, is targeted, is not covered, is not protected, is not rallied around. That they are absolutely targeted and are fodder for these evil, compromised imposters impersonating their positions, because they they are they've betrayed their oath, which makes them nix nil nothing. When you betray your oath, nix nil nothing. And this is like Montoya too, right? So who shot up uh whoever those people were in the black tactical, whatever group that is, with the black tactical, with the M4s that Glennon Oakley Jr. saw, and he lost his life because he said it. I really believe that strongly, because he was so retaliated against, severely retaliated against. They did not protect him. After that day, even though he was brought up to the White House, and he was given an award and everything, he was scared out of his mind because he was so retaliated against. He was not protected. And just like the two attempts on President Trump's life, even as a candidate, he was not protected. I mean, he's been totally retaliated against. This is what he's up against, and what he's been hopefully rebuilding. I mean, you see that he's been rebuilding our energy structure, our pipeline, and to to give us cheap energy. It only takes like 10 cents to bring that oil up out of the ground. I don't know why. 10 cents a barrel, It's like, we need refineries. Oil is not, the earth makes oil. And they call it fossil fuel, which is a total lie. That's a total proven lie. It's not fossil fuel, it's a renewable. The earth makes it. It's a gift. It's a total gift from our maker to have that beautiful oil. And it's just so cheap and so plentiful. And um you know, so for President Trump to give that back to Americans is a beautiful thing because he wants to give us the security of that ice patch called Greenland. That's so important, right? So important, and to secure our borders, uh, and our health care. Today at Davos, he was talking about uh, Macron, the what is it, the president of France, or the I don't know what his total title is. I know it, but anyway, it's late. It's 2:30 in the morning. But Macron of France, um, he 3 minutes of willing and dealing with him, telling him, you know, you're only paying $10 for this medication, your people. Our people are paying $130, right? You've got to raise your prices up so that we can lower our prices, right? Um, y- you know, and he's like, no, no, no. And he goes, well, for your champagne and wine, I'm going to raise, put a tariff on it. And then he's like, okay. So President Trump has to do this art of the deal with these people that want to. He goes, because you have just been screwing Americans, right? That's what he was saying to all these countries. I mean, he was just hammering them. He was just absolutely, it was just beautiful to watch. It was so beautiful to watch. And um, Americans now are enjoying cheaper prices for their medication. uh, it's just we need a tough person. We need someone that is going to fight for Americans. And it is a vicious, it is, I think, being a politician, this whole fighting for Richard's remains, because at the end of the day, this is what this is for us, is the vicious fight for the repatriation of our son's remains, because we know, we have the evidence that they have our remains, and they're keeping them from us. Okay, that they found them in Mexico, and that they're keeping them from us. And this is, Mexico. Um, it's a vicious negotiation, and we're not going to give up. We want our son. We want our son's remains, and we want those that did this to be held accountable. And so the next topic. So I answered that question: who we think shot up. Um, I think it was professionals in black tactical gear with M4s. That's who I think. Because the whole gun issue now has just been blown apart, hasn't it? Just been blown apart by Marcelio abroad, the Mexican official. What was he? The Mexican official at the time. Now he's the Secretary of the Economy. But at the time, he was going in front of the press and saying, look, um, 8 Mexican nationals were killed in this. 8. We want to be part of the investigation. We have the right to be part of the investigation. And we want to see this gun. We want to inspect this gun. who sold it to him, da 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 da. And guess what? He was denied. He was denied. Now, why would that be a problem? And now we're very convinced by the videos, by the handling of Patrick Crucius inside, that this weapon was very lightweight, um, uh, that it was not what they say it is. We're convinced of that. Now, could we be wrong? Yeah, let's see the gun. Let's see this rifle. And the Mexican officials wanted to see it, and they had the right to see it and inspect it, and they were denied. And now we didn't even have a trial to even see the weapon. We were denied also because the people behind this Walmart are protected. Unlike our volunteer sons and daughters that want to serve our country in the military and are made to live on post in the barracks, they are targeted. They are in danger. Why are the Mayellas not arrested? Why aren't the Harts not arrested? Why isn't Leilani Hart not arrested? I mean, my goodness, she should totally be arrested years ago. And thank God that Cesar Duarte was arrested. He has over a dozen, more than a dozen homes in El Paso. Why is he so protected? I mean, there's so many allegations against him with all of the fraud, with all of the money laundering, with all of the embezzlement, with all of the cartel connections. I mean, the harm that he has done, I mean, crimes against humanity. And he's just now arrested. Hallelujah. Um, but I hope that he's not protected. I hope that he's not protected, and let go and let go. I hope he gets the full force of the law, through the legal procedures. I'm all about law and order. Even though I know that the courts are a shambles, that our judges are compromised and corrupt. I mean, David Guadarrama is so corrupt. I mean, his federal courthouse manager was Michael Mayella, the family of Patrick Crucius, and he stayed quiet. He covered that up. He swore James Bonneau Montoya, the total fraud and fake, 2 times to be the prosecutor for El Paso. Are you kidding me? Judge David Campos, like Mauro Campos, David Campos Guadarrama is so compromised and corrupt. So corrupt, y'all. It is just, yeah. So going on to the next point, the Allens. Allen, the city of Allen, the town of Allen, Texas. Allen, Texas. I'm going to bring up my notes for this one because I think it's very, very important for people to understand that with the Charlie Kirk, no matter what you feel about Charlie Kirk, he was controlling an organization that was bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars, at least 100 million. I don't even know. I don't know their books. They're supposed to be audited, right? They're supposed to have a Doge audit, right? That's what he wanted to do right before his life was taken, right? He wanted to do a Doge audit of his organization. So, I mean, it's millions and millions of dollars, and it was very influential. Okay. Whatever you think about him, that is the truth. and very influential to the highest levels, to the highest levels um, of government around the world, really. Just very influential. And um, his, his death is huge. It is huge. And anybody looking into it, like Candace Owens, who was now served a cease and desist from TPUSA, Turning Point USA. Can you believe that? Uh, wow. I mean, just wow. This is supposed to be the, First Amendment, woohoo, you know, and now they say, stop, stop, don't talk, just stop. You can't talk. You can't investigate. We were told, and this is why we're so allowed to investigate. We were told by the CID and our son's command that we had to be the investigators and bring them leads, or they couldn't and wouldn't help us. That's what we were told. We were given that duty to be the investigators, and we have reported that from as soon as it happened. We've been reporting that. So that's on record. But now, if you want to investigate your friends, and there's no doubt that Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk were very close friends. And when you want to investigate, I mean, this is a biblical mandate, when something happens to your family, that you go and investigate, you find out, because there's no one else like your own family, like your own friends, that care about you, that have your back, that when something like this so criminal happens, and they're, anyone that says, like this this lady that just was killed too, um, Renee, right? I mean, she was celebrating the death of Charlie. I got sent so many pictures of her celebrating. I mean, this is sick. This is so criminal what happened to Charlie Kirk. And you have that tells me she was a very sick individual, and she was part of this group. She was part of this evil group that is wreaking havoc with humanitarian, um, and saying she's there for like humanitarian reasons, but that's fake. That's fake. No way. You cannot um, make fun of this humongous crime against Charlie Kirk and then say that you're, so benevolent or whatever, so Christian or whatever. No, no, that doesn't, no, those don't fit. Those pieces don't fit. Get yourself a different puzzle. Um, so what happened to Charlie Kirk is so criminal. And there should be such a rally, and there is. It's like the largest like criminal investigation, right? Um, there's so many people that are investigating it, and they're doing a very, very good job. Amazing job. And we're following that. And yes, we talked to multiple times. We've talked to Mitch Snow, who identified um, TPUSA members, including Brian Harple, at Fort Huachuca the day before. The day before Charlie Kirk's life was taken. And I'm leaving it to them to really investigate what our what we're supposed to do is investigate Richards. And we've investigated so much now that we're in the vicious negotiations for his remains, right? Um, and those vicious negotiations for his remains is leading us to, connecting these dots, the wider criminal organization, the Mormon faction, the FTO cartels that are, interweaved in all of this, that were given a um, a joint venture, a joint venture alliance to have access to our intelligence databases, our narcotics intelligence databases through Connell Wenton, right? Through Connell Wenton, who is absolutely compromised, and is the one that leaked our son's identity to the cartel. Um, to give this joint venture alliance this protection that is such a privilege, right? It's such a privilege that they use our taxpayer funded law enforcement and intelligence community for their intelligence, our judicial system, I mean, for their protection. They use our judicial system, our law enforcement, our databases to protect them, to know what cases are in the pipeline, what's being investigated, who's investigating. They don't have to go through FOIAs. They don't have to go through FOIAs. They get this privilege, these FTOs. And so the city of Allen is part of the DFW, right? I went to Temple High School. I lived in Temple, Texas. I lived in Temple, Texas when all that Waco stuff was going on, right? The David Koresh stuff. I mean, this it's just amazing, because I lived in El Paso, went to school in El Paso, and I lived in Temple, Texas, and of course, I'm a very good friend in Dallas. Going to Dallas, visiting Dallas area, being very familiar with San Antonio, because the PA schools in San Antonio, right? The physician assistant, the Army physician assistant schools in San Antonio, of course, teaching in Killeen, Texas, where I met my husband because he was serving there at Fort Hood, knowing Fort Hood. I was I was in for the Libby's. Isn't that the Libby's cafeteria shooting, where the car drove through there? I was in Killeen during that time, visiting. Um, so it's nothing new. My alma mater, and I'm just kind of giving you my so much information. My alma mater is Mary Hardin Baylor. Right? Mary Hardin Baylor in Belton. That's why I knew the Leon River. I knew about Vanessa Guillen. I could picture these areas because I'm familiar with them. I used to go water skiing on Lake Belton. Um, so it's DFW is not, of course, being in high school and going up there for football games and everything and performing for the Dallas Cowboys. I performed for the Dallas Cowboys three times for their halftime on Thanksgiving Day. Three Thanksgivings. One of them was missed because they were what do you call it? They were picketing. They were picketing on one of those Thanksgivings. But yeah, so I understand Dallas would go up there for baseball, and Allen, the DFW is, y'all, it is, talk about military contractors. It is a major hub for military contractors, for military intelligence contractors. It is, for Brian Harple to be from Allen, Texas, and it's like, and for Patrick Crucius to be from Allen, Texas, and for his his father, who, my goodness, that opens up such a can of worms because he was in mind control. Fort Huachuca is in mind control. So it's like this whole circle. And then training under the disciples of John of God. This is talking about Bill Clinton here. This is Oprah Winfrey here doing terrible things down in Brazil. This John of God guy who was convicted of these terrible, absolute worst type of crimes against children and others and convicted. He was convicted, y'all. I mean, you have to, when you have that kind of power, when you're connected to Hollywood, when you're connected to the likes of Oprah Winfrey, when you're connected to the president of the United States, Bill Clinton, and you're then convicted again with the most horrible crimes against children and trafficking and I don't know the whole scope of what he was convicted of, but and 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 Brian Crucius Sr., because of course the brother is Brian Blake Crucius, is is in mind control and is training under these disciples of John the God, John of God or whatever, John of Satan, you know, and in Allen and the city, oh well, Allen, Texas, and part of the broader DFW area, which is totally military contracts. I mean, and oh gosh, and mind control. Um, so let me see if I put that all in my Allen, Texas. This is in my notes. Sits on the heart of the DFW Metroplex, a massive hub that quietly feeds personnel into defense contracting, military families, intelligence agencies, law enforcement, federal roles across the country in a relatively small suburb of just 100,000 people. The repeated appearance of multiple individuals tied to high profile national security adjacent cases, like Patrick Crucius's family, like the security professionals of Brian Harple and Dan Flood, overlapping in these networks is statistically improbable and screams a pattern. And so I you know, I'm just blown away by this. I'm just blown away. And I have to tell everybody for our safety. I get on every night for our safety. What's going on behind the scenes is like, and we have to document it. We have to draft all of these letters, file them, uh, right to the right people, or just file them and file them and file them, praying over every last one of them so that they land in the hands of the right people. But document everything. That this is how big this case is. When you're talking about reaching down now to Brazil, uh, it wasn't enough to have the pipeline going through Mexico into the Caribbean, connecting Zorro Ranch to little St. James uh, of the Jeffrey Epstein two locations, the two major locations, and it be the total pipeline from one to the other. It's uh it's jaw-dropping, but now we're going into Brazil. Now it's NATO. It's because don't forget when we and many have maybe forgotten this, but we haven't. When we were being so harassed and threatened day in and day out, it was so bad that we did everything we can to trace these burner phones. And we did it, y'all. We did it. And where did it lead to? One of them led to NATO. One of them led to South Korea, Gimpo, and to Seoul, the FBI office right there near the cathedral, the Anglican cathedral that I've attended several times in South Korea. Um, it led to um, Toronto City Hall. It led to the White House. It led to Santa Clara, California, to Stanford University. It led to which is Silicon Valley, right? Silicon Valley there, and it led to Carolina, North Carolina, the home of Fort Bragg, which they wanted to change their name to Fort Liberty, and President Trump changed it back because legally it was so important. And you know how much money that cost to change the name and then change it back? It cost so much money, but it had to be changed back. Fort Hood had to be changed back. It couldn't be left at Fort Cavazos, even though I kind of like the name Cavazos. Um, but it could not be legally because of the crimes. Just think about Vanessa Guillen. That happened on Fort Hood. Fort Hood. And so this is really important. That's why they were, changing it. Just like Leilani Hart changes her names, right? Efemiao or whatever her name is right now. She changes her name because it's a legal protection. So that name needed to go back. Um, so what's happening right now in the Charlie Kirk and in the Walmart mass shooting is so connected to Richard because um, it's the same criminal organization. And I call them the El Paso cartel that have the tentacles that go out to Fort Huachuca, that go up um, to Colorado and to Utah and to Idaho, that go into Oklahoma and Kansas and that, and goes up to Pennsylvania, New York, these tentacles. But the epicenter, when you map it out, the epicenter is El Paso, is Fort Bliss. El Paso, Fort Bliss. And yes, those tentacles go down into Mexico. This is a huge monster creature, the El Paso cartel. And yeah, let me read the comments here. Just imagine plain civilians. Yes, I read that one. What more evidence is there to be so we can proceed? There's a lot of singing right now. There's a lot of singing with Madero. You have to understand that just because you don't see things happening, that doesn't mean that things are not happening. Because we know, and people are sending me things, that a lot of these cartel are being extradited. I think 39 more were extradited. We have the capture, the arrest of Cesar Duarte. I'm sure that there's going to be some deals made. That's what I'm saying. That this is so dirty. Politics is so dirty. Um, there's so much compromising, and you have to play this. They call it 5D chess or whatever. What I want to see are the results, right? We want to see the results, and this whole thing, that kind of President Trump put out, and I kind of laughed because everybody was so mad, and they're like, he doesn't care about Jeffrey Epstein. Are you kidding me? Everything he is doing is to undo this Jeffrey Epstein pipeline that reaches down now into Brazil. Because don't forget, Brazil is in big trouble, right? Because of this whole criminal organization. Um, he is, and um, he is truly the peacemaker, and it is vicious. It is the most vicious. I just can't even imagine. And so, uh, I know that Cesar Paneche's a mansion was raided. I know that we know now that the Pemex was being siphoned. That's out. That means that the Pemex, good chance that Pemex is not being siphoned right now. That means that the Mexican people have been spared from that kind of fraud. I think that is reason to be hugely grateful for President Trump. Of course, we have the Plenitude Crematorium, which is the whole funeral fraud, the transnational funeral fraud. And there's a good chance that a lot of that um, flesh peddling has been reduced or gone. And don't forget La Diabla being arrested, taking organs and babies. So there's a very good chance that that kind of harvesting is very reduced or gone. And don't forget about the arrest of the Miss Universe owners who were also into the fuel fraud, fuel theft, and fraud, and also all of the crimes that come with these beauty pageants behind the scenes, which is, it's bad. And then, of course, we have the secure of the border. We don't have those unaccompanied minors coming over in tens of thousands, 10,000 at a time, hundreds of thousands in 2 years, 500,000. This whole thing, exposes um, so many other issues, so many other issues that, of crimes against children. Well, who just ended that pipeline of unaccompanied minors? They're screaming about illegals being deported, but these illegals that are here, that, let's say these are the nice ones, right? That were conned by, I was told today on the chats that it was Beto O'Rourke that was teaching people how to illegally enter our country, and Pelosi was illegally there in Venezuela, showing people how to illegally come into the country. I don't know, they referred some articles and stuff like that. I'll leave that to more investigators. But I'm just saying, you know, they're being exploited. If you think that Beto O'Rourke or Nancy Pelosi had good intentions for these people, they're being exploited. So you've got to leave. If you're illegal, you must leave for your own safety, your own well being, your own future, because you are in real danger to be caught up in this, like what Zeraldi was arrested. Of course, Montoya is protecting him, right? With this uh, solicitation when there's not even a prostitute, it is absolutely exploitation of a victim. Um, and he's protecting him. Montoya's protecting this Zeraldi demon monster. So that has been revealed. And I can go on and on. And the battle is not over. This is a real battle, one battle after. It's the vicious negotiations for Richard's remains, because let me tell you, that victory will be so beautiful. It will be so beautiful. Heart wrenching for us, because one of the comments was, get a life. Wait a minute. They took our son's life. We can't get a life. We have to get our son's remains. Some of these people, they're just short sighted. They're very short sighted. They don't know what they're saying. And so it is vicious, and it is a psyop. And I don't know, just by the grace of God, that it's just a miracle what we've accomplished. There's no explanation except for that God's hand is all over this, and um, and that who is the one that wrote us the letters? Who is the one that designated these criminals, FTOs, these cartels? Who is turning off the spigots while he is building an economy and dealing with the likes of Davos, dealing with the likes of these big billionaire donors, dealing with the death of a friend because Charlie Kirk was the president's friend. Dealing with things like that, the loss of that support because Charlie Kirk was huge conservative support to the president of young people. And fighting against the insanity of um, these people that want to burn down their states, like in Minneapolis, for individuals that are absolutely stealing them. I mean, um, what, $19 billion of theft, stealing from them? Um, and people want to support, I guess they're skimming off that. I don't know. I don't know why they're supporting that. It's like, number one, for their own protection, if they're illegal, they need to get out. If they're thieves, they really need to get out, right? And come in legally. And I don't think you'd be so ready to be a thief. You can have a free life. So anyway, I think that is, we covered a lot, and I really appreciate you holding on and sharing this, sharing parts of it. Feel free to do that. And we will be back tomorrow. I hope I read everything. That's why we feel so entitled. Look where those phone calls coming from. Yeah, those burner phones, I tell you, when that data came back, um, it's kind of like an Adal B moment. They're telling us, "Oh, he's nobody," and wait a minute, he is somebody. He's someone really big, and it's turning out that Patrick Crucius is becoming someone really big, but not what we thought. Being the son of Brian Crucius, I think it's a huge connection. And I just want to also tell you that Allen, Texas is the home of a large Mormon community, a large Mormon community. I cannot stress enough how I think we're the only ones that I hear saying this, that are willing to say this, that there is an infiltration into the Mormons. It is a Mormon faction that is, they're up to no good. So criminal, so criminal. And we have c- contacted, we have communicated with the Mormon leadership, and they still haven't responded. So that's really weird because you would think that they would want to protect their members. So, because these people are very violent, they will stop at nothing. They will even forcibly remove a whistleblower from his barracks room, take him down to the soundproof arms room, and take their life, steal them off of Fort Bliss, pay whoever to traffic them to Mexico, and pay for the cover up. The cover up is very expensive, y'all. So, thank you so much. God bless you. And I hope I answered all your questions and comments. I know there's a lot. So, we'll be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye bye.